I'm the Saskatchewan lead, co-lead for this AgTech Summit, and my co-leader is Neil, who's introduced himself in the chat.
Totally, yeah. So I'm Neil. I'm the Calgary lead here for Startup TNT, as well as co-leading this with Jesse. Not a farm boy, because my actual farming friends would give me crap if I called myself that, but I grew up in the country, spent my most of my youth working on dairy farms around Lacombe, and I'm pretty passionate about the ag community.
Awesome. Yeah, so we have two very passionate folks running this, and we're also working with a lot of folks. But what is Startup TNT for those that don't know? Well, Startup TNT, first, the TNT stands for Thursday Night Tradition. That's at the core of what we do. Many of those that have joined us here on the call have been to some of these events across the prairies. Every Thursday night, we meet up for a happy hour or some sort of community event with our friends and partners. And live up to our motto, which is have fun, make friends, build companies. And we think it's really important to build those deep relationships amongst founders, investors, innovators, and all the community members that have to come together to make a startup community successful, especially in underserved markets like here in Western Canada. And that's where we focus with Startup TNT for both our happy hours and for our main program, which we call the Investment Summit, which is what we'll be talking about today. And the Investment Summit, that's where we do the build companies part, and I'll explain exactly how that all works. But there's some of the companies that just got some of our investment from us. We're literally closing those deals like as we speak. Tim's busy working away there, probably in the office where Dom is, working away at closing those deals. And we're really excited to have a bunch of new companies join our portfolio, and we're getting close, I think over 8 million invested now, Neil, in over 60 companies. So very excited to have that with Startup TNT. And if you'd like to learn more about our history and stuff, you can definitely check out our website. We've got lots of blogs that talk all about this. But for this summit, yeah, we can't do it alone. We got to do it with a lot of other folks. There'll actually be more people being added to this sort of logo wall that we're building here on partners as we go. One of our main organizing partners is the great folks at Tallgrass Ventures, a brand new ag tech fund out of Calgary. We got Wilson Acton and Chris Edwards as the two general partners. And they also are working with Marlies Hunter, which many may know, having worked with SVG Thrive previously. They're all working with us to really make this successful. We're also very happy to have Innovation Saskatchewan providing us with some core funding support for this, in large part because the finale is going to be hosted in Regina. So each year we run this, we're probably going to move the finale around a little bit and kind of highlight different places in the prairies. But this year we decided to do our big first finale that we've ever done in Regina for the AgTech Summit and really celebrate agriculture in Saskatchewan. And we also have a couple other awesome folks, or a few other folks helping us out. AgWest Bio has graciously agreed to sponsor and are working with the GAP, the Global Agri-Food Advancement Partnership. Both are fantastic programs. If you haven't connected with them, check those out. They have some funding supports as well as lab equipment at the GAP, greenhouse space, and things that you can use if you need. And then, of course, we've got some great community supporters, Saskatoon's 2 incubators, Cultivator and Collabs. Cultivator's also got that Ag Tech Accelerator. We got the folks at Foresight, who are our lead sponsors on the Clean Tech Summit, but they're also very involved in the ag space. So take a look at what they're doing. And then, of course, Deal Closer, which we'll be using to sign all the documents at the end. So that's one of our sponsors. And so who's making it all possible? Let us know a little bit more about them, Neil. Why don't you tell us?
Yeah, totally. So you met Jesse and I already, and I don't know if Dom's still on this call, but if you look at the chatter in your views, you can see our operations guru Dom. He has also got a partner called Jonah, who you'll be seeing pretty frequently. And then in terms of getting all the deals closed, we have our deal specialist and TNT co-founder Tim Lin, who's going to be helping out the companies probably at the later stages, as well as we're checking out your LinkedIn here now, Jesse.
All right.
And last but absolutely not least is our marketing lead, Amanda, who's amazing. So all of us are resources, and we're here to help, whether it be for the summit or just in generally. And everybody's super nice. So don't be afraid to say hi.
Awesome. As I mentioned earlier, we've got over 8 million raised after the fall summit is done, and over 60 companies invested in. We've done 19 summits with 19 winners. Sometimes we combine a lot of those summits together into like multiple streams within a single sort of time period. So that's why it doesn't feel like 19, but it's been 19. The first one was all the way back in February of 2020 when we invested in Drug Bank, which you can see right there up in our winners. And in fact, that's one of our biggest wins so far, as they have raised over a $9 million Series A round, and subsequently to our investment. And a number of other companies, including last year's Clean Tech winner, have also done that. Environmental Material Science just won back in April of this year for our Clean Tech Summit. Great company out of Saskatoon here, and received a total investment now of 1.6 million from some of our partners and friends over at PIC and Westcap, who will be following along pretty closely with this Ag Tech Summit as well. So yeah, if you ever like curious about, what is it like to get investment from TNT, feel free to reach out to any of these companies and just say, hey, like, I'm thinking about joining the summit. I'm sure they'd be willing to send you a quick note to say how their experience was. But yeah, those are our companies. And then the big one to notice there too is that 230 investors have invested with us since the beginning, and we're hoping to get that number, I think, probably above maybe 250, at least above 250 of new investors, total unique investors invested with us. We might get it closer to 300 potentially after all three of these sector summits finish up.
Totally. And you can infer it by seeing that, but if you look at how many, we've had 19 summits and we've funded over 60 deals. So that means that every summit has seen more than one deal get, more than one company get investor interest and get investment from our investors too. So I think that's a neat feature of the system.
Yeah, that's a really big thing to keep in mind, is that even if you don't win, there's still an opportunity to get investment. So why should you join the investment summit, Neil?
Well, there's a whole bunch of reasons, Jesse. But firstly, especially for early stage companies, it's a great way to gain confidence talking to actual investors from across the prairies that are interested in your particular industry that you're in, and communicating your business and your unicorn, right? And then functionally, there's also a bunch of tools and how to learn how to build the data room if you've never done that before, manage the deal screening process. You'll get valuable feedback from the investors, as well as debrief sessions. If you don't make it, you'll get feedback throughout the process from the investors, especially as you get to know them. And then it also has a marketing angle, so increasing your visibility in the community. We have 2 public facing events associated with every summit: a top 20 pitch night, which goes up to the community, which usually has great engagement from a broad variety of people that you wouldn't normally see, and that ties into the last one. So it's a way to get in front of people that are genuinely wanting to help early stage prairie ag tech companies kick some butt, to put it nicely, and can help your business on the vendor side, on the customer side, on the capital side. It's just a great way to enable a community to support you.
Absolutely, yeah. And as Neil said, Rick, we're going to be getting together a really good group of investors. We've already started working on that, as I mentioned, some of those partners, but we've also got folks like Remy Schmaltz, who's probably going to be investing us with here. The 51 just reached out yesterday. They want to invest with us in the Ag Tech Summit. My father is a farmer. We've got a great ambassador, Chris Nicolation, out of CAMSAC, who's also a farmer, and they're working with us to recruit more farmers. And we're also working on trying to get some ag retail guys, ag professionals. We really want to have a lot of strategic value around the table for you in this summit. So it's not just about the investment, it's also about all the advice and wisdom you can gain from being with these investors, and increasing your visibility in that ag tech community, potentially finding some clients to purchase your product or pilot it, finding some strategic partnerships, and things like that. So really, that's really what it's all about. And ask sort of anybody that's been through our process. They'll tell you that it's so much more than just the money. You're going to gain a lot of experience. You're going to gain a lot of knowledge about how to raise capital. And it's a collaborative experience between the investors and the founders. It's not just like Dragon's Den where the investors are up there just kind of like grilling you on your numbers. We like to sort of make it a sort of collaborative coaching experience. And we work with both the founders and the investors to help make that happen. So what are our goals, Neil, for this summit?
So for our inaugural AgTech Summit, we're hoping to get 30 plus company applications. We want to make sure that we have great representation from all 3 prairie provinces, because that's a really exciting way to energize the prairie provinces in Canada. We're going to aim for over 30 angel investors, and that means that we're going to get into this a little bit later why, but that'll mean that we'll have at least $200,000 in investment for the winner of the summit, and hopefully more.
Yeah, we managed to raise over $500,000 in our Clean Tech Summit last year, and over $700,000 in our Life Sciences Summit. We include numbers from our partner organizations that are being involved with us as well. Because, as I said, we got Tallgrass Ventures around the table. We're in talks with Emertech, AgTech Fund, SVG Thrive is going to be coming on as a community partner as well. These are all AgTech focused investment funds that could end up writing larger checks as well into the summit. So this is really the most important part because the AgTech Summit is a little bit different in terms of the eligibility criteria. So first off, it's the stage that you're at. We're looking at that friends and family to it says to seed stage, but really it's the Series A stage. So sort of we kind of say in terms of the size of the round is between about 250,000 and 2.5 million, somewhere in that range. 250,000 is probably going to be about the minimum that like the winner will get. So you may want to make sure you got at least that much in your round left for us, because we are hoping to get 30 to 40 investors, plus there's the TNT Capital Fund, which we'll explain in just a minute, for a total of about 200,000, and then people will top up and follow on from some of the other sector summits, like the sector summit. All 3 of these sector summits are going to be sharing deal flow with each other. So the amount of financing is going to be at least a minimum of about 250,000 up to about 2.5 million, just to ballpark there. You can have revenue, you cannot have revenue. That's totally fine. But we do need you to be incorporated by the finale night. So there's actually something for us to invest in. We require you to be headquartered in one of the 3 prairie provinces, Alberta, Saskatchewan, or Manitoba. And then comes down to the sector. So Neil, why don't you explain the sector a little bit more about what we mean by that?
Totally. So I'm going to read a word. I know you all can read, but I'm going to read a word for word real quick, and then just talk about it and answer any questions that pop up in the chat. So we want the applicant companies to demonstrate that they are an ag tech company, obviously, that increases food security by using a tangible technology or hardware product to improve efficiency, yield, profitability, and or sustainability of agriculture and food production. So what that says, like to put the cliff notes on that, is that we're looking for companies primarily with, if we're looking at tangible technology or a hardware component, it's not straight software companies, but yeah, so there's obviously a lot of interpretation into like improving efficiency, yield, profitability, sustainability, but there does need to be like a physical technology or a hardware component to the business in order to qualify.
Yeah. Tangible technology is a language actually our friends over at the GAP use. I guess essentially the main thing is if you're entirely software and there's no sort of in-field component to your business, or there's some sort of bioscience. I see Mark there showing us his device. That's fantastic. That definitely qualifies you. But you're going to need some like a gene editing company. We want to include those companies like that, sort of that bioscience bit as well. And if you do have any questions, or you're still unsure, you can definitely apply. But Neil and I and members of our team will be going through the eligibility criteria. We might send you an email just to follow up and ask you some questions if we're unsure based on your application. And that can include the geographic region part too, as I see Jess McAllister mentioning there in the chat. So yeah, if you're unsure, it's better to like fill out the application. The application only takes like 5 minutes. not if especially if you've done stuff like this before or applied for any sort of like pitch competition or accelerator incubator program. It's pretty straightforward. So just apply. And then Neil and I will be in touch if we believe there is a potential eligibility problem.
Yeah, and we're happy to talk about that offline here after too. If you have any, like individual specific questions, feel free to reach out to us, or we can hang out online after this call too, if you don't want to talk about it with the broader group.
100%. Yeah, and those last point there too on the participation requirements, very important. So I'm just going to hit that. It is an 8-week due diligence process where the investors are going to be setting up regular meetings with you. There's sort of like a staggered approach throughout the 8 weeks, starting after the top 20 decision. So the investors do the initial call, and then there's a series of meetings throughout the process. So you need to be available for that. And also be able to get us the data room and everything else that we're going to be asking for in terms of due diligence materials. And then really important, we do want to, as long as everybody's healthy. I'm currently down with COVID right now at my at my house, so I'm hoping it'll keep me immune between now and March for the finale. But ideally, everybody will be joining us in Regina on March 23rd for the summit finale. And actually, it's going to be really big summit finale for Ag Tech. It's also Ag Tech Welcome Week for our friends over at Cultivator. On the Wednesday night before, on the 22nd, there's going to be a big community Ag Tech night. We're going to be inviting everybody to come in one night early, hang out with us and our friends there in Regina to really experience the ag tech ecosystem that is forming in Regina. So yeah, with that, here's the key dates. Pretty straightforward. Everybody can read, but you'll see there the top 20 pitch night is on February 9th. That is going to be virtual with in-person watch parties / happy hours in our 5 cities where we operate in the prairies. So no worries there about travel or anything. You can be honestly anywhere that has a stable internet connection, even in Europe or whatever. It's not a big deal, as long as you can join us and do the pitch. And then of course the summit finale there. Anything important that we need to highlight here, Neil?
No, I don't think we've talked about what 5 cities we have happy hours in. So I just want to mention them briefly. Is Edmonton, Calgary, Saskatoon, Regina, and Winnipeg. So if you're near or in any of those places, we have our weekly happy hour. But there will be great celebrations after each of these sort of big milestones.
Absolutely, yeah. And there'll be happy hours, as I said, like it's a Thursday night tradition. It happens every Thursday. Actually not tonight in Saskatoon because there's a community event. But but every Thursday there's some sort of startup event happening that TNT is involved with. So it doesn't always have to be just during the summit. And kind of important thing to note there too on the bottom, the entrepreneur education sessions, those are not mandatory by any means, but they're a great opportunity to learn more and gain more knowledge from some of our subject matter experts that we'll be bringing in. So how does it work in terms of the actual investment? You saw there at the end, funds transferred. How does that work? Well, we do it all through a limited partnership structure, which is very similar or almost exactly the same as a venture capital fund, where each of our investors put in $5,000 each at the beginning. That's a pre-commitment before they've even seen the companies. So they won't even know who they're investing in. And then as we've mentioned earlier, it's an 8-week period that they do all the due diligence, and then they invest in one of the companies, and it becomes one line item on the cap table because it all funnels through that limited partnerships. The investors can top up their initial commitments. Sometimes people really love the company and they want to put $50,000 in. Or sometimes they're like, hey, I want to do a deal in the second place company. I really like that one too. Or maybe one of our clean tech investors is like, hey, I've been following along with the Ag Tech Summit as well. I really like, one of the companies in the Ag Tech Summit. I want to do a deal there. We facilitate all that. And that's how we end up raising a lot more money by having that system in place that allows us to do that. Most important thing here to note for you founders is that it's, as I said, no matter what, it's only going to be one line item on your cap table. So even if it's a small deal or a big deal, it's always going to be one line item. Anything to add, Neil?
No, I think you covered it well. I think the next slide sort of rounds out the conversation, and we can head there. So as you noticed before, when you said there's about 200K that's going to get invested into each winner, you're probably wondering where the extra 50K is, and that's from our new VC fund that TNT is raising. So this is our first fund. Each winner of the summit will get an additional $50,000 plus the pre-committed investor money. So that's where the 200K came from. So 30 investors times 5K each, plus the 50K from the VC fund is going to be syndicated through the same check as the core investment from the angels. And then also another value. Well, there's a few value adds to this. So the intent of that is to be able to carry the companies through and support them through Series A. And we're going to do that obviously through capital means as well as non-capital means. So our intent is to pair each company with venture partners. So folks, entrepreneurs that have been down the road slightly ahead of you that can provide some guidance for like all the weird things that entrepreneurs have to deal with and validate whether it's weird because it's normal or if it's weird because it's actually weird, and to guide you through like the best processes and utilize their network to help you grow through the Series A phase. And also we have the opportunity to follow on investments through from the pre-seed through the Series A in terms of capital as well.
Yeah, really exciting new addition to our resources that we're providing to companies, and yeah, we're happy to have the capital fund. And as I mentioned, syndicated through the same check, still a one line item. So, well, how does it actually work in terms of the decision making? We mentioned it kind of is a funnel process. So right off the hop, depending on how many applications we get, we're hoping 30 to 40 applications. We'll present those applications to our investors. So make sure you fill out your application at least relatively substantially, right? You don't have to write massive paragraphs, but at least more than just one sentence is definitely helpful. I find that one sentences ones get called very quickly because there's just not enough information. So make sure you're putting a decent amount of information in where you can, as well as, you got to have a decent pitch deck. That's basically what they're going to be reviewing: your pitch deck, your website. They're going to spend about 5-10 minutes with it, and give it a quick score of 1 to 4, 1 being a hard no, 4 being a hard yes. And then we aggregate those scores and we come up with a sort of an alphabetical order top 20. So we don't reveal the rankings. We don't reveal them at any point to anyone until the end, where we reveal them to the investors. So that initial top 20 happens. The top 20 get to pitch at the top 20 pitch night. And then they only get at least one meeting with their investment team, which will consist of, say, 2 to 4 investors at the initial stages. We'll meet with you and spend about an hour with you, asking you a bunch of questions and filling out notes to report back to the wider investor team, which then meets on a regular basis every week and discusses the companies. After all those initial meetings have been done, and we've had it's about a 3-week period from the time that the top 20 is chosen until we make the cut to top 10. At top 10, and we ask for additional due diligence materials, i.e. the data room is what we're asking for at the top 10 stage. And then we do the same thing again. We're doing order ranking. So the investors rank them from 1 to 10. 1 gets 10 points, 10 gets 1 point, and the companies with the most points get moved on into the next stage. And so then we do a cut to 10 2 weeks after, or 3 weeks after the top 20 chosen. We do cut to 10, and then 2 weeks after that we do a cut to 5. So it happens pretty quick once we start going. And then 2 weeks after the top 5 is chosen, that's when we have the finale night. So as I mentioned, the top 5 happens on March 9th, and then the finale night March 23rd. And as we go into the finale night, we actually have final deal terms negotiated with all top 5 companies. So that's something to bear in mind throughout the whole process. We're going to start sprinkling those questions in early. Hey, what do you think your deal terms are? And it's fine if we need to lead the deal. If we're going to lead, we're probably going to lead it on a safe, just because it's easiest for us to operate that way. If folks are wanting to do a priced round, we can obviously have that discussion, but it's just easier, generally speaking, for us to do it on a safe or a convertible note if necessary. But deal terms will have to be done at the end, and that's essentially what the investors are ranking at the end, is which deal terms they want to take. And then the one with the most points at the very end gets the money. There is a tiebreaker mechanism. It's whichever one had more number one votes. I think we've only had to use that a couple times in our history. So usually it's a pretty clear winner. Do we have any questions in the chat on this one? Initial scoring, the idea that it's up to the investors. Basically, like, so each investor is doing their own scoring. So like, and each investor has their own investment thesis. So basically we ask the investors is which ones do you find interesting? Which ones do you want to learn more about? Right? Like which kind of captures your attention. You're like, well, this is a really cool technology in a cool space. Yeah, there's definitely like social good as part of like some people's decision making. The potential for ROI is part of the decision making. There's a question in there in the application is like what other accelerators, incubators, past fundraising that you've gotten to date. Often investors like seeing that you've gotten some IRAP funding or some other grant funding, or you've gotten into incubators and accelerators. It's sort of all of like a social proof of your company. Anything to add to that, Neil?
No, I think you did a good job. So it is a collective decision-making process, right? So we love the fact that there's a diversity of views and opinions and backgrounds amongst those 30 plus investors, and so it's more like aggregating the collective thoughts on your company with all those varying perspectives. That's going to determine whether you move on to the next one or not. There's no like one single criteria.
Yeah, and it's really up to as I said, it's really up to the investor. Sometimes it happens too, or like there's a company that there's a group of investors that really, really like it, and then they kind of like shepherd it all the way through to the end. And it might not be one that like the wider group loves, but they'll end up getting a deal because there's a group that really loves them. So you never know. And that's one of the things we love so much about it. I've invested in companies and I probably never would have invested in if not for the fact that there were some really awesome folks around the table to help me take a look at them. If you've got any other additional questions, feel free to keep posting them in the chat. So how does the due diligence process actually work, Neil? What are the sort of like, you kind of mentioned some of these already, but
yeah, we've covered this already. So I know that like we have the words like intensive due diligence and due diligence listed there, but it's not like you're sitting down for 8-hour grilling sessions with the spotlight over top of you. The intent is to have like meaningful conversations and for it to ratchet up throughout the summit as we go from 20 to 10 to 5. So if the investors are local to you, it could be as simple as sitting down for coffee and chatting with them. I'm suspecting with the sector summits that we'll see more conference meetings because we'll be drawing investors from across the prairies and founders from across the prairies. Be prepared if you already have customers to provide some customer reference checks. We'll walk through, for those that don't have a data room or unfamiliar with it, we'll have a bit of training set up for how to set up your data room. So that's just like sort of the functional pieces of your business that investors can go through and look at. And then the last couple of weeks, like Jesse said, are talking about deal structure and negotiations. We also have some training and great resources for that. And then if you have a hardware product that has a demo, that is an amazing way to get investors excited about your tech, is to actually show them something tangible. So that's just a little pro tip at the end there.
Yeah, definitely, and especially with the companies with the hardware components, because we are going to be recruiting investors from across the prairies. There's probably going to be a few investors that will be relatively close to where you're at. And as we get closer down to the end, we love to arrange opportunities for those investors that are in your backyard to be able to come over and check out the technology in person, maybe see your facility, see some members of your team, and we highly encourage you to talk through with your investment team on making that happen. We find these sort of demos really help sell to the investors the opportunity, and often play a big factor in deciding who the winner is, but also can play a big factor in how much like money you end up getting, whether as the winner with top ups and everything, or as a side deal. So and even if it's just like something online, you just organize a product demo via Zoom or something like that, and you can kind of walk people through the product. It's a really great opportunity. Okay. As Neil mentioned, we've got some really awesome education resources as we've been running education series for quite some time. We're still ironing out the Summit Education Series for this upcoming sector series. One of the ones we're going to start with at the beginning is actually going to be one on being a good mentee. We have another side, which with our friends over at Mindframe Connect, which are a really awesome firm that's funded by the federal government to help with mentorship and coaching. And the people who run it are also venture capitalists, like general partners at venture capital firms. So really, really good session for those that have never done it before with Mindframe Connect. So make sure you keep an eye out for that. But in the meantime, there are some past pitches and stuff. We'll make sure you guys get a copy of these links. Whether I don't know if Dom's gonna be posting them in the chat or just sending the links to our playlists on YouTube. They are right. They are all our education series are available on YouTube. We've done some pitch boot camps with Kevin Dahl and John Leipoth. With our great Prairie Pitch Marathon. There's also the past pitches, but there will be, with those that make the top 20, there will be a peer-to-peer pitch practice during the week of February. Actually, I think it's going to be prior to that, week of February 1st or whatever, first week of February. That'll be the peer-to-peer pitch practice. You'll get a pitch to some of our ambassadors and investors, and they'll give you feedback on your pitch. As well, we've done a number of sessions on due diligence and setting up your data room. So make sure you take a look at that, and you will get details in your orientation package once you apply and are accepted based on the eligibility criteria. We send out the orientation package to you, which has more information. Anything I missed there, Neil? I think I got it. Oh, why don't you tell us about the two events? You've mentioned these multiple times, but
totally. Yeah, absolutely. So just a reminder that the top 20 pitch night is virtual, the actual pitch portion, after parties in Calgary, Edmonton, Saskatoon, Regina, and Winnipeg. They'll be streamed over Zoom and to YouTube as well, so the public can watch it. It's a great opportunity to showcase your company. And then the finale on March 23rd is live, the pitch portion in Regina. We'll also be streaming it to YouTube and Zoom as well. And there will also be after parties in all 5 of those places too to celebrate some winners. But it's going to be fun.
Absolutely, it's going to be a great time. Just quick notes that we ask of our founders. Is first one is, this is why we're doing that mentee session, is being receptive to feedback. You know, strong opinions loosely held. We find that the companies that are able to work more collaboratively, the founders that are able to work more collaboratively with their investors, tend to have a more successful experience with us, because that's what it's going to be long term, and that's kind of what the investors are exploring, right? You can think of this a bit like dating before you get married, is what this process is about. And also why we love the happy hour, so you can get an opportunity to come out and really get to know those investors, right? And make friends with them, because they want to support you, right? Big reason why the investors are investing, obviously is for, you know, some return, but they're also doing it because they want to be investing in their local community. They want to be investing here in the prairies. They want to give back. They want to, a lot of our investors have built companies themselves. Like I mentioned, my father had built an ag tech company himself, and that's one of the reasons I was able to convince him to do this investing with us. And also a big thing is like assist and encourage and work together collaboratively, right? Like it is a competition, right? And there is only going to be one winner, right? Although there are going to be multiple deals that are going to happen. But you know, if you work as a community, you're going to have a much more worthwhile experience coming out of it at the end. Anything to add to that, Neil?
No, I think you covered it, but at the heart of it, like going back to the Thursday night tradition that we started on, it's about building community, right? And community can be a really powerful tool going forward. So whether or not there's like a capital investment at the end of it, our goal is to build up like meaningful relationships with local investors, with other founders, and to help your company succeed for those that get investment and those that don't.
Yeah, just see a couple of questions in the chat. Mark, the only thing with regards to Cultivator, for the companies that we know of, that we know like going in, I can put in a good word for them with the Cultivator folks, but it's really an independent decision-making process on their side of things. But if you do get into the Cultivator Ag Tech Accelerator, I believe you'll find out probably before the applications are due, and you can always update your application saying, "Hey, I got into the cultivator," and that will probably make a little bit extra on your application because, yeah, getting into an Ag Tech Accelerator is always as a positive. And then in terms of the barcode. Not exactly sure what you mean by that, but I mean, you can have a QR code or something with you for people to connect with you, and then you can talk to them afterwards.
Can I just ask?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, go right ahead.
So within our pitch decks, when we're pitching to an audience, whether it be top 20 night or top 5 night, have a QR code for those an audience to actually scan and invest into the company through that actual barcode.
Totally, yeah. And the best slide for that is your very last slide of your presentation. That stays up the whole Q&A period. We see that happen quite a bit. So that's a good place for it, if you want my opinion.
Yeah. Just bear in mind, like if you're doing it that way, like the folks that are going to be investing with us are all going to be investing through our limited partnership, and we want to do that so we can syndicate it and we can make it one item on your cap table. If they're not a part of our syndicate, then they would be investing directly into your company. And yeah, exactly. Okay, perfect. All right. Last few slides here. In terms of communication, there will be, once you're into the summit, we send out weekly email updates sort of at the beginning of every week, just letting you know, hey, this is what's happening this week, any important updates or things that need to be taken into consideration over the next 7 days or so. Of course, the happy hours that we mentioned multiple times. We got the entrepreneur resource base, which will be in the orientation package. We also send it at the bottom of every weekly update. And we also have our own newsletter as well with Startup TNT. Just go to startuptnt.com/subscribe, and you can sign up for the newsletter in your region and stay up to date with everything that's happening with Startup TNT, as well as exciting things happening in the startup community. We post, interesting accelerator programs that you can apply to and things like that. Neil,
totally. No, I just wanted to add on to that. So I don't know if everybody's aware, but we're also holding 2 other sector-specific summits this winter too on the same track as you folks. So we have a life science one and a clean tech one too. So if you, and I know there's a lot of overlap between ag tech and clean tech, but if you know folks in those spaces, we love to support them too. So
absolutely, yeah. And if you've got also the other cool thing too to bear in mind is if you've got existing investors or potentially interested investors, you can send them our way. That's okay, right? We ask all of our investors to identify any potential conflicts of interest during the process. We've been able to handle it very well. So don't be afraid if like, hey, this person is already on my cap table, they might create a problem on the back end. No, that we've had plenty of companies come through where our existing investors are already on the cap table and they still are able to go through the process. And yeah, it's the same basic presentation. There'll be a slight difference as they get partway through. So yeah, you don't have to watch all 3 info sessions this morning. They're basically all exactly the same except for that one slide which talks about eligibility criteria. There's slight differences between each of them, obviously. But yeah, so if you've got investors that might be interested, feel free to send them to Neil or I. We'd love to talk to them and see if we can get them on board with the process. And of course, it's good to have those folks that know you and can be a good champion for you. Obviously, knowing that the existing investors will take it all with a grain of salt, but all information is helpful. Yeah, so as we mentioned, you want to reach out to us, there's our emails. Pretty straightforward. Neil, Jesse at startuptnt.com. There's the website. There's also a general email, your friends at startuptnt.com if you need to reach out. And with that, I think we'll leave it there. And if we've got any questions in the chat, you can feel free to do that. Otherwise, we like to end these sessions with doing a quick 30-second pitch or less for each person here that we can get through, the people that want to do it, and just tell us quickly about your company. So why don't we do that?
We typically go with people that have their cameras on. So just a heads up that if you want to chat, throw your camera on. So we're not putting you on the spot. But if anybody wants us to kick it off, there, Mark and Jim, you.
I got Mark.
Boyd.
Tell us about Flock, Mark.
I can jump in. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yep. That's a Flock. Flock is a solution for herd management, traceability, and management of livestock herds. We've been testing on farms since about this time last year. We think we've got a customer base that's going to be driven by two things: new revenue through sustainability and certifications, and impending federal regulation that we're waiting. It's within hours going to come into effect. So looking forward to participating and meeting some more people in the AgTech space in Calgary.
Awesome.
Thanks, Mark. All right, Boyd, I think I saw you throw your camera on next. Does that mean you want to go?
Sure, why not? Nice to meet all of you. So Kyle Hoyt and I, we're the founders of Cultivate CI. We're measuring, reporting, and evaluating the decarbonization of the ag, food, and CPG industries by building the connective tools for the entirety of the value chain. So we inherently feel that the carbon credit market in agriculture is flawed. So we are staying far away from the carbon credit and feel that the carbon offsets don't actually improve the carbon footprint of agriculture. So with no standardized or consistent approach, we're working at tracing the carbon footprint from farm through to grain buyers. So we currently have partnerships with two of the larger grain buyers in Canada and one of the big 6 banks. But again, we are very early days and at the start. So that's a little bit about us.
Cool. Excited to learn more. My dad was actually involved with the soil Conservation Association here in Saskatchewan, and we sold carbon credits on the Chicago Climate Exchange back in the early 2000s. So,
oh, nice.
Yeah, very, very exciting. Jim, I did see Jim come on, but I don't know if he's here. There he is. Jim, do you want to tell us about West Grove Farms?
Yeah, we're an indoor vertical farm. We primarily produce green leaf produce, lettuce primarily. What separates us from others in the controlled ag environment is we use carbon neutral energy. So we use a natural gas generator and a CO2 separator, and we utilize CO2 in our process. So we are carbon neutral in anything that we produce and sell to the market. We're currently in about 35 retail outlets, most of which are Sobeys and Safeway in the Edmonton area. So we're looking to scale our organization and increase our production.
Love it. Yeah, hopefully then lettuce won't be $10 a head anymore.
Well, there's nothing wrong with $10 a head lettuce.
For you, maybe.
Yeah, that's right. I was just about to say that's the wrong guy to say you don't want it to be there, Jesse.
Yeah. Anybody else want to jump in right now? Otherwise, we'll wrap it up early. But feel free to share, jump off mute if you want. Those are all the ones that were on the camera.
Or if you have any questions, you can ask here or email us or reach out on LinkedIn or any of those other means as well.
No, it's early in the morning, but
all right.
Well, I guess
that's it. Hey, Jesse.
Yeah, let's wrap it up.
All right. Thanks so much for coming, everybody. Enjoy your day. Like I said, Jesse and I are a great resource. Reach out anytime. We're happy to chat.